I've only got me to speak to you today, but I've kind of written down some bullet points because I wanted to cover off all the points. But I spoke to my dad and I'd written some prose, and I write, and it sounded more like I was reading from a book. And I feel like you guys deserve somebody that can speak from the heart about my experiences. And so that's why I'm here today. And there are a lot of you, which is terrifying, because this is probably the most people I've spoken in front of about myself ever. And it's hugely daunting. And it's more daunting because you already know more about me than I know about any of you. You already know that I was a vulnerable child, that I was once in a situation that I needed specialist help. I'm already wondering whether you think that it was because my parents didn't want me, if I was a troubled child, if I had learning difficulties, behavioural difficulties, and I guess I want to be able to prove to you all that it's why I'm standing here, that I have the right to stand here and try and talk to you about my success. And I hate talking about myself in terms of success or survivor. I think that all of us fight our own demons on a daily basis, regardless of whether you were in care doing them, whether you go out for your life and you can't decide whether to have a mocha or a cappuccino. These are quite hard decisions that I have to make daily. And I think everyone goes through hardships. It's a relative process. So what I've gone through may sound shocking to some people, but what people's pain is meaning to them. It means something to them. And so, yeah, I wanted to kind of talk to you about me, but also kind of reiterate the point that this is just my story, and I'm unique, and everyone has a different story. And so I fell into the problem child category. I was different. I think it's a good way to describe me growing up. I was really misunderstood. I think every teenager thinks they're misunderstood, but I particularly felt I was misunderstood. And I was bullied, and I was an easy target. And when you're young, you don't understand your emotions, you don't understand why you're feeling a certain way. I definitely didn't. I knew that I thought differently to other children my age. I knew that I'd gone through different experiences to children my age. I lost my best friend when I was 11 to meningitis. My mum was probably the first person to admit that she wasn't the best. She had her own demons that she had to deal with. One of the hardest lessons I think children ever have to learn is that the people that we love aren't perfect, and they don't have all the answers, and they make mistakes too. And sometimes when you look up to somebody for guidance, they can't always give you what you need. And I love my mum, but she just wasn't qualified for me, really. I went through a lot, and I don't want to go into all of that, but not having the capability or the capacity to understand your own emotions is extremely difficult. And so when I turned 14, I was that dark type of angry that didn't really understand why she was so angry, but just was. I was rebellious and over-analytical and hypersensitive, and people didn't understand me or know my struggles, and why was I so different? And it got all too much for my mum and my dad. My dad actually joined my family when I was 9. He's my stepdad. And he provided a semblance of this really lovely, happy, kind of normal home. You can class it as normal. It was a nice unit. But he came in just a little bit too late for me. I'd already gone through enough by that point to be quite, I guess, damaged is a good word to describe me. And so I was rebellious, and I was taken away from my parents at 14 and placed in a care home in North Yorkshire, where I lived with people more like-minded. But more importantly, I lived with people that were better qualified to look after me and to deal with me and to help me understand me. And so that's where I was. And I met some incredible people. I don't know if anyone saw me crying at what was just shown before, but I also met some really bad people. And I think what the best lessons I learned from all of that was in the great words of George R. Martin, was to wear your past like armour and no one can use it to hurt you. And sometimes you can take that too literally and you can be kind of impenetrable in a lot of ways because you don't want anyone to see that vulnerability in you because it's scary, it is terrifying letting people in because you don't want to face it. You're not old enough, you're not mature enough to understand your own pain at that time. And so I was encouraged to be creative. And I think creative outlets are hugely important for children like me and for children that I live with, that I communicated with every single day. We found it through music, through arts. I particularly found it through writing. I could write you an essay about why I was angry with you that day, but when I spoke to you, I just swore. So it's something that I think is a really helpful tool. And I think that was kind of around the time I heard the word potential, which I think everyone thinks is a really good word because you've got so much potential. But all I ever heard was you're not good enough right now. You're almost there, but maybe a couple of bit more work, a few more years, and we could really get you to be, an outstanding person and a real stand-up member of the community. And I just saw it as negative. I always ask myself, what's wrong with me? Why aren't I good enough now? I had absolutely zero self-worth. I had zero self-worth about care as well. And I found it very difficult to hear that I had potential because I was still trying to struggle with the stuff that I was learning about myself. And it's a process that you have to go through, I think, and it's a process that we all go through growing up. But when you're in a care home and you're surrounded by people going through their own processes and people that have what you consider harder times of it than you have had, it humbles you and you feel, well, I don't need to talk about anything because so-and-so, this happened to them. And I didn't feel like I was a priority, that I was worth investing in that aspect. And so it took a while. I saw a psychotherapist for 3 years and I had sessions with her where I was just silent. And she would say to me, why are you being quiet? And I wouldn't answer because I was in control of that situation and I was being really mature by not talking to her. And I had all these different kind of tactics that I went through to try and prove that I was capable and that I was strong and independent and I didn't need anybody to help me because, please, that's the person's way of working. They need more help than me because I'm actually okay. Let's just get that straight. I wasn't okay. And it was a process, and the people that I met were invaluable through that. They told me that they believed in me, and it wasn't one of those things I kind of shrugged off. So please, you don't know me. You don't understand how damaged I am, really. Only I can help me. And that's true to a certain extent, because I think you can't help anybody unless they want to be helped themselves. And actually, we all do want to be helped. That's the big thing that we try and hide from you, is that we are desperate to be what you want us to be more, to be stronger, to be better, to be able to survive in the big wide world without anybody having to help us. We have a chip on our shoulder because we're already in an institution that we don't want to be in. It's horrible. It's horrible going into a care home, living among people that you wouldn't choose to live among, being taught by people that have the best of intentions, but ultimately you kind of have in the back of your head, are they just doing it because it's their job, or do they really care about me? And yeah, you have to deal with that, really. And ultimately, I decided that I would latch on to the people that I really believed in me. And we're not stupid. We know who cares and who doesn't. We can see through it. We're highly sensitive beings because we've gone through a lot, and we're very aware of people and how they react to us and how we react to them. And so I kind of picked the people that I wanted to help me in a lot of ways, that people had a rapport with. And I can say after 3 years that actually we managed to do that, and I was kind of released into the big wide world, which was terrifying all over again, because I came from this world of rules and regulations to being in this world where if somebody wanted to hurt me, they weren't slammed to the floor and restrained. Actually, they could punch me in the face, and that's kind of terrifying in itself, because you communicate a lot in care with a level of impasse prowling, you're kind of circling each other to try and find out your weaknesses and your strengths, and can we be friends, can we work? And then I was kind of thrown into this world where I had to figure out how to make friends in a normal way that wasn't kind of forced because I lived with them, was something that I had to find a rapport with people my age that I felt to be honest, I felt I was superior to, because they didn't know my struggles, they hadn't gone through what I'd gone through, they had no idea about me, and getting to know me would be scary to them because how can they know somebody like me? And I didn't feel like I was worth knowing to them either. I thought that we were just from different worlds and it would always stay that way. And so for the first year, I lived in Darlington and I went to a college, a music college. I decided to pursue that side of things. And it was around the same time I met the lovely Andrew Kemp, who was worked with Connections, and he set up a fund for care leavers and basically just gave me money. So this was great because I was living on my own. I was playing adult as children make believe and pretend that you're, a knight. I pretended that I was an adult. That was my game. And I had all this money, and I was going to college, and I got a little part-time job in a Mozambican restaurant down the road. And I was incredibly lonely. I had no friends, and so I bought 2 guinea pigs because that's healthy. And I looked after them, and actually they were great. I wanted, and I really did, Andrew, wanted to spend the money the way it was allocated. I wanted to spend £50 on food a week, and I wanted to buy myself deodorant, and And actually, the reality of it was I'd been being on toast for a month because I wanted a new pair of shoes. Kind of an obsession. Sorry about that. And this was me playing adult. I saw money and the world, and it was a big, scary, horrible place. And shoes made me happy. I mean, come on, don't judge me. Cookies as well, may I add. And I went to college, and I met some incredible friends in the end. The second year, I didn't know how to talk to people in the first year, and then friendship was forced upon me by a few people in my second year. I think they thought, oh, she really needs some friends, because she's a bit of a loner. And they're friends to this day. 2 in particular, probably the reasons that I got through college and actually ended up getting a merit, which was not expected for me. Even passing was quite an achievement for me. And then I decided to move to Birmingham with my then boyfriend at the time and go to Derby University to study creative writing and theatre. And then I got there and I ended up breaking up with my boyfriend because it wasn't working, and then going to uni, meeting another guy that was actually an abusive man, and it all kind of fell apart for me at that point. And so I ended up leaving university, and sadly at the same time Andrew and I had to part ways. And so I was in this big limbo world then. I didn't know what I wanted to do education-wise. Well, actually no, before I went to university I did an access course, or it was after. I'm really bad with timings. And then me and Andrew parted ways. But either way, I didn't actually finish university. But I can go back now if I want to. But I don't. As much fun as it was. I decided I was going to move back home for the first time ever. And so I moved back with my parents in Wales. And I was homeless 8 months and I lived in my car. I didn't want to cover that bit, but that's fine. I decided maybe I needed to swallow the pride a little bit and actually, get a shower. So I lived back home with my parents, and I was there for 3 months, and I got a job in admin, which is really stable because everyone needs paperwork doing, unless it's online, digital, which I'm now working with anyway. I decided that I wanted to kind of move away from sales, and I decided to do an office job because I thought that's easy. And I did, and I then moved in with another boyfriend of mine, and I'll explain that pattern in a minute, because it was stability, and that didn't work out. And then I got a job in Swindon, where I met the lovely Keely, who's filming me now, and I decided to break up with my boyfriend then as well. So I'd gone through 3 of these really bad relationships, and then I kind of realised that it was a pattern for me, that I was clinging on to men the way that I was clinging on to my carers in a care home. It was a support network, it was stability, it was something that I felt safe doing. It wasn't relying on me. I convinced myself and I fooled myself that I was independent for all of these years, and I wasn't. I was just still that terrified, scared care leaver, and I hadn't worked out how to be happy on my own. And then I did. I decided to break the pattern, and my best friend in the entire world jumped with me, and we moved to London. And we lived, telling Andrew this story earlier, we lived on a blow-up bed that we had to boil water in the only pan that we brought with us, spend the night on the floor. It was like we were squatting, which was quite horrendous in this flat. We did have jobs, because that's always sensible to jump and move to London with no jobs and buy a flat with money, but you just now don't have. But I was lucky enough to get a job in an environmental resources company, and I worked as a PA there for 3 years, and then decided to leave there, and I got a job now. I work for Which magazine now as a PA. And it's, my life worked out weirdly well, and something that still surprised me. And I was sitting at my desk earlier on this year thinking, wow, I'm in a publishing company, I'm a writer, I love this, this is exactly where I want to be. God, how did I end up here? And then it made me think back to everyone in my life that had led up to this moment where I can finally say that I made it, that I'm happy, that I am as successful as I never believed I would be. And it was because of people like you that worked with me, that told me that I could be more, that I could be better, that I could succeed, that I could be successful. And when you have no idea how to be that, or how to understand how you can be that, it's invaluable. And it was something extremely important to me to come here today and just try and give that message, because I think you only hear the bad stuff. You hear in the news all the time of all the bad stuff that happens with care leavers, with people in care, and you rarely hear the success stories because people don't share that as much. And I never thought in a million years I'd be sitting down saying to Andrew, thank you so much for believing in me. I think you'd be happy to know now as well that I can afford food and shoes. And I guess we are the sum of our journeys and the people we meet. And although my success wasn't through education, it was through people, and through people's lessons, life lessons that they taught me. And I guess I wanted to say, if you want to change, if you're in a position that you can change, I promise that you will, and you always just have to make it positive. And I wanted to leave on a bit of a quote. I actually read it last night when I was Googling how to be brave and stand up and talk to those people about yourself. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to